Note to self, don't ever click on a free trip to Egypt email ever again. Okay, I've been walking for a good 2 hours. Where the heck do I go now? Obvious mirage, nice try. I don't think so. Yeah, I've seen that movie, I'm not falling for that one. Alright, current direction. Ah! What the hell? Don't know who leaves a revolver in the middle of the frickin' desert, but whatever. Don't mind if I do. Serious Sam is a video game. It got a remake for PC, it's got revolvers that do the spinning and the shooting, and we're gonna try to beat the game using nothing but that. I don't need to elaborate further, you know the drill by this point. Before we begin, I, against my better judgment, have decided to include a death counter for this video, because I learned nothing from the last time I did one of these, and it got quite silly this time around. Also for this playthrough we're playing on serious difficulty. Why not mental? Because you need to complete the game on serious difficulty at least once, and beating the game by itself was more than enough for my lifetime. Our story starts off with a very optimistic look on humanity somehow making it to the end of the 21st century with ancient technology and space travel before getting attacked by aliens, with most of mankind getting shoved right back to their home solar system. The Earth is in peril, and humanity's best shot at survival is to send the last man in a sunglasses, t-shirt, and jeans left alive hundreds of years into the past with nothing but the clothes on his back. Oh yeah, we have a gun too. The revolver is your first real weapon in the game and your primary means of defending yourself early on. You can get other weapons as you move forward, but you can't exactly spin a minigun around your finger, now can you? I started off by exploring the area and picking off the few enemies nearby. Our current goal is to explore various temples around Egypt so we can get access to the major cities and eventually the Great Pyramids. The enemies right now can be easily dispatched with a small number of shots and don't really present much of a challenge right up until we run into the clear skeleton. Get familiar with these bags of bones because they're going to be some of the most common enemies we will encounter throughout this entire mess of a playthrough. It's easy to find the second revolver fairly fast in the first level, but my original plan was to rely on a single revolver for as long as possible, but that hope and dream was immediately blown up by missiles. Mostly because while I was exploring the desert behind me, I got blown up by missiles. This is the dominant biomechanoid, better known by the affectionate and less of a mouthful names I have given it, such as Rocket Thing and Annoying F***. At this moment in time, they're not that much of an issue because we're in a wide open area. Projectiles that have travel time and do splash damage don't do much to drive me up the wall and paint the sand red. Not yet anyway. This flavor of mechanoid is a mid to late game enemy, so dealing with them with a single revolver takes a very long time. Long enough for me to talk about the gun. This would normally be the part where I explain how ammo works, but it's not really relevant to this, surprisingly. As this is gun number 1, your only concern is aim and time to actually get a kill. The revolver and its racist cousin that's no longer welcome at Thanksgiving, the second revolver, have infinite ammo at the gate. Brilliant, right? Not really. The revolver is slow and doesn't do a lot of damage. Fire rate isn't very quick, and the game explicitly mentions it's for taking down weaker enemies at long ranges and as a last resort against tougher foes. If you recall my escapades in Chernobyl, you know that I think that's quitter talk and any gun is viable enough if you throw enough bullets at something. The bright side is that instead of a Soviet-era pea shooter, we have the big iron, and Agua Fria looks nice this time of year. Generally though, I use this little fight with the rocket thing to gauge how effective I would be in battle. And the answer turned out to be not very. I originally did some math to try and figure out how fast I would shoot in terms of rounds per minute, but it's honestly easier just to have you watch me fight this thing. If you thought I was throwing pebbles before, I definitely am here. To be fair, this is a mid to late game enemy. I'm only running into this thing because I dared to go into a secret area for extra health and loot, and that's going to be a recurring theme throughout this video. After dealing with the chicken walker, I ventured deeper into the temple to more enemies. Some health I wasn't able to take with me, and a shotgun I wasn't allowed to use at all. This would be the first of many arenas that would really test my patience, as just about every single enemy in the game likes to make a beeline straight towards you. As mentioned before, the clears are a very common enemy and prove to be the first of many, many headaches. They take about 2 full mags worth of shots with a singular revolver before going down. This arena wasn't that much of a headache in the grand scheme of things, and the first level was finished fairly quickly. Level 2 puts us in Sand Canyon, a mostly open area that gives us our first taste of the kamikaze. The kamikazes are exactly what they look and sound like. They run at you holding bombs and explode upon death, regardless if you shoot them yourself or they make contact with you or another enemy. They need to be dealt with as fast as possible, because if you let them get too close, there's a good chance they'll either touch you or be too close to safely detonate without hurting yourself. I took my sweet time running around and picking off what was around me before being punished for saving my game. Remember what I said about enemies liking to beeline towards you? This game has things called werebolves, which spawned along with a few more kamikazes, not to mention them being behind me. Figuring I was already dead, I walked through the hell crowd, which somehow worked until I hit a blocked off area. Most of my strategies by this point boiled down to strafing and jumping while whittling down whatever I possibly could while trying to stay alive. It's also important to note that while the werebolves are annoying in their own right, they do have the benefit of also being able to damage other enemies, which actually does help to a small extent. Numerous deaths and save scumming ensued, two statements that would pretty much become the only way I could really describe this video, and my reward for turning the werebull population into hamburger was more clears. After picking up some nearby armor, I was swiftly reminded that this game really likes traps. Traps meaning you walk into a new room and immediately get mobbed by an idiot standing around the corner like I'm playing Call of Duty in 2012. This is also where I learned that you don't need to have your reticle lighting up to be able to register a hit. When you're close enough to an enemy in serious jam, your reticle will change color depending on how much health the enemy has, going from green to yellow to red, and to white meaning nothing. It's the game's way of saying the enemy is close enough for you to do actual damage. This, however, is a myth. As long as an enemy is in your line of sight and nothing is blocking the path of your bullet, you can shoot at it, a fact I exploited very frequently whenever possible. After nearly getting pancaked and getting jump scared, I ran into the next absolute pain in the neck. Imagine opening a door and finding Captain Olimar with 100 Pikmin on the other side, and he just blew his whistle while pointing at you. That's what it feels like running into marsh hoppers. They're not that much of a pain under normal circumstances. Just keep shooting at them because they die in one hit. If you look at these things funny, they're pretty much gone. That said, it's not one or two of these things spawning in. It's dozens. Marsh hoppers are annoying, especially with how much they eat away health at this difficulty. This section was actually my first major roadblock, believe it or not, because running and strafing only does so much when there's so many of the same enemy in the same general area. When you're limited by how fast you can actually shoot, there's only so much you can do. But thankfully, this same room also spawns a clear that can instantly kill the hoppers with their jump attack and can easily filter out bunches of them at once. With that travesty out of the way, I graciously walked into another room so I can get locked inside of it and die. This stupid idiot got stuck behind a pillar, and this otherwise benign hallway hit me over the head and stole my wallet. This was the next roadblock as I tried to rush my way through the crowd countless times like it's Black Friday at a Walmart. After finally retreating to look for any missed pickups, I snagged some extra armor that was conveniently stuffed inside the ceiling. Even with this armor, the pile of NARS ahead of me was still too much to handle, and this was where I decided that 2 guns was more than fair. Turns out 2 guns are better than 1, and I was kind of able to hold my own just a little bit better. On an unrelated note, there's a glitch in this game where sometimes you're able to fire a 7th shot in the middle of your reload. While you're reloading more bullets into one gun, you're firing an extra bullet out of sheer willpower out of the other one. Despite my increased firepower, some marsh hoppers heard I was having a good time and wouldn't stand for that. Once I was done being caked in alien blood and eyeballs, I managed to make my way outside. Not long after falling for the classic free armor to a good home prank, I started getting swarmed from multiple directions and ran into another new friend. Remember the rocket thing? Well, this is its little brother, the laser thing. Dealing with this thing takes a large handful of attempts, causing my death count to rise to 52 quite quickly, but after finally getting a good run, I finished the level with the skin hanging off my back by a thread. This level rewarded me with the Orb of Confusion from that one SpongeBob episode, and we moved on to the Tomb of Ramses. I got attacked on spawn by some clears and later ran into more laser guys. While these mechs do some decent damage, I would hardly call them a challenge to deal with. They can go down fairly fast and can be easily avoided with distance and simply moving out of the way. All I will tell you now is that I went through a good chunk of the level and I didn't save, so when I inevitably died, I had to start over from the beginning. You guys want to meet the arachnoid? These machine gun toting things shoot then move. In that order, never at the same time. They're also really stupid, and if they don't see you in their direct line of sight, they don't do anything. I then, in the following order, found more rockets to eat later, found more arachnids, played peekaboo with this laser thing, fell for the oldest trick in the book, got jump scared, and got annoyed by the flying NARS, and no, I don't feel like downloading that one clip from Star Wars, so use your imagination. Later on, after finding a secret that didn't decide to punish me for existing for once, I found a room containing a double-barrel shotgun. This means I'm in for some nonsense. This was also my first time making an attempt to just skip everything because wow, I hated this spot. This area is packed with clears, and the idea is that the double barrel allows you to one-shot them at close ranges. Please see previous statement about the single barrel shotgun. Long story short, I managed to manipulate the clears in a way that allowed me to get shoved up the wall. Problem being that they can get up there too, and I still can't leave. If you stick around long enough, the game sprinkles marsh hoppers on your head because you're doing too good. Once I figured out I needed to actually trigger the door I'm supposed to go into and then proceed to the exit, I safely walked into the room containing the next element and was presented to level 3, the Valley of Kings, which opens to a wide open area with enemies. If this path to what could be assumed to be the exit appears short, that's because it is. There's a small number of enemies that are decently far away here, and since the revolvers have pinpoint accuracy, you can trigger them one at a time and not get swarmed, though I couldn't kill a kamikaze fast enough for my liking. The strategy became retreating backwards and slowly pushing forward as I went. Also, remember what I said about rocket things being mid-game enemies? I lied. This is level 3, and here they are. Much like their little laser brothers, they're best handled at long ranges. The problem with them though is they take a very long time to deal with, and since splash damage exists, you need to move more when dodging. We also have what the game calls the Aludran Reptiloid, but what I have dubbed Stupid Green Idiot. I would like to tell you how I handled this thing, but you won't be able to hear me over the screaming of all the kamikazes that just spawned. They like to spawn meteors that home in on you. They can be taken down when there isn't more than one in the area, just point and shoot like literally anything else in this hole. It's just waves and waves of enemies, so let me cut to the interesting part after I pick up the rocket launcher.
Now that's some serious firepower.
There's a big one now. Yippee. The red reptile man's meteors have one static path, so avoiding him is not a big deal. That said, I tried shooting him in the butt and died. I thought I could cheese him, but the game planned ahead and threw more clears at me. I started looking into trying to escape the map, but eventually managed to get into a spot where it couldn't see me, and I just shot at it until it died. My reward was pain. What we need to do now is lower this central pillar by pressing 2 switches, one on one side, one on the other. I hope you like arachnids and clears, because I don't, especially because being given a slight glare would put me in the hospital. After I got stomach cramps in the water, I figured I would need to use my environment around me to survive. Enemies will never jump into the water to actively get you. They can't swim, and sure enough this worked to my advantage and I was able to start picking them off. I tried the same tactic on the second button, and it took a while, but I eventually managed it. I can already tell that anyone familiar with this game is probably tearing their hair out right now over something I could just do and ignore this whole mess, provided I don't hit anything with it besides myself. And believe me, I know, I wanted to put my head through the wall while setting up the death counter thinking about this in hindsight, but we'll blow up that bridge when we get there. After getting some Pepto-Bismol from underneath a set of stairs and getting mobbed by marsh hoppers, I found out I only needed to kill 2 specific Nars in one room to proceed. There's one room that has a string of HP, projectiles, and more enemies. The enemies that like to hug you are frustrating, not to mention me falling for the conveniently placed health trick for the 10th time. I took time to try to get loot in the adjacent room, which was booby-trapped, because me for thinking something could be easy. I managed to make my way on top of an enemy dogpile, and you'd be shocked to know that a hallway containing arachnids is terrible. 172 deaths deep. I decided to reload the level and go through it again, this time making it there with 34 HP. Good? No. Better than earlier? Kind of. I'd rather go down in 2 hits than 1, you know? Proceeding through, I began to experiment to see exactly where enemy trigger points were, that way I could make my own life easier when it comes to enemy management. Picking up health spawned some more clears because... yeah, and started to end runs using the rocket launcher in cases where I was just gonna die anyway. I eventually managed to get a good run where I made it to the hallway with 40 hit points and 24 armor and had to make do with some marsh hoppers and a clear. My strategy was to hide in some corner and occasionally jump around, but that would only get me so far. Backtracking got me nothing but more pain, so I read some lore and dropped dead. New plan, minimize damage. Period. End myself every time I do and get there with as much HP as possible. I should mention that in enclosed spaces like this one, luring enemies away from certain areas is very useful. It makes more sense to deal with one enemy at a time than deal with what could easily become something to akin to wait, I already made this Black Friday joke. Once I made it to the hallway with 100 HP and 23 armor, I began to fight and retreated far enough to survive with my skin hanging on by hopes and dreams. I picked off the arachnoid from a safe distance, pressed the X button in the Call of Duty museum, tried clipping through walls with no success, got 7 HP, and entered the meat grinder. Welcome to the end of Recording 4 and pretty much all of Recording 5. You're in this area containing a cage with soldiers, clears, and 2 arachnoids with pretty much no cover at all. The second you pick up this giant beating heart, you're pretty much doomed. Pick off the soldiers with your revolvers. Okay, cool, whatever. Here come the clears to pile up at your doorstep. Like, literally piling up at your doorstep. The arachnids peek in, the gates open, and you're dead. Repeatedly. Have fun. Not only is there this little guy back there, the adjacent room has the big red guy, which is just as annoying, so good luck dealing with these things in an area with less cover than a nudist beach. To give you an idea of how badly this area was a thorn in my side, I put the game down at the end of this recording and slept on it. In fact, I slept on it so hard I ended up mostly finishing an entirely different video by the time I decided to touch it again. This area sucked and was where I thought I was well and truly done for, but apparently going into a coma for 5 months was what I needed to actually be able to finish this level. All you really need to know is that in terms of deaths before I decided to become possessed by a feraligator for half a year, I was here, and by the time I picked up the game again, I was here. Throughout my adventures, I realized there was another adjacent room where the red arachnid was, containing a pool full of water that I could safely hide in. Like a rat to the deep fryer, I dived right in and picked off the arachnid from safety. There's a silver ankh at the bottom of this pool that when picked up triggers some Looney Tunes bullcrap from the ceiling, so I have to do the thing that lets me actually pick it up first. With bling in my hand, I found another room containing conveniently placed ammo and weapons. There's also an arachnid in the rafters because why should I be allowed to have fun while playing video games? What ended up happening was that I figured out how to parkour onto a ledge to give myself some high ground to prevent the inevitable marsh hoppers from dogpiling onto me. Trial and error eventually ensued, and the game decided I needed to fight more after I got my golden run. I picked up some ancient Funyun looking thing and it led me to another area outside. In my confusion, I shot a statue in the junk. This does not violate the run, as statues don't have feelings. Not yet anyway. I found this funky looking portal and got took to another level called Moon Mountains. All you need to know here is nothing. I got farted out of a waterfall and found the obvious secret hidden item. The opening of this level is a gigantic open field and where the run really started getting ridiculous. I'd tell you, but that would be spoiling things before we get there. On a couple of occasions I tried to escape the map before I remembered the water was a safe place and did my job from there. I even drowned a few clears in the process. I finally managed to get inside the building on the other end of the field and sure enough there's a rocket guy inside. In a very small enclosed space. You know, Texas Red wouldn't have had to worry about the Arizona Ranger if he had a bazooka, just saying. Cover? Forget about it. Cover means nothing when splash damage exists. I tried going back to Moon Mountain again, but again, waste of time. It's not even worth talking about, so let's just go back to Oasis. After performing pest control, I started to explore my options because I thought it would be really stupid if I just gave up here. I would occasionally make it deeper into the area, but after getting genuinely frustrated, I looked to the speedrunning community for support and learned that if you strafe in midair, you could just move a little bit faster. I couldn't tell if it was working immediately, but it felt like it did. So if you see me jumping a lot during the rest of the video, this is why. I did manage to get sight of the next exit with enough blood, sweat, and tears. It's an arena full of enemies.
I'm tired, boss.
With 200 armor and 60 HP, I saved the game and died almost immediately. After a while, I realized I'm able to jump onto the torches that adorn the walls and hatched an idea. Use the rocket launcher to blow myself even higher to an upper ledge where the marsh harpers can't touch me. Taking these things out turned out to be child's play compared to literally everything else and only took around 10 minutes. Then I entered a hallway. It had 1 or 2 enemies spawning here, including arachnids, which somehow weren't the worst things in the world. The problem came to me in the form of more marsh hoppers. Not only do I have nowhere to hide, I'm in a small narrow space, so fat chance of me even trying to get around these stupid green idiots. They pretty much kill me as soon as they spawn. This was my next major roadblock, as there was no way I could feasibly knock out all of these things with the revolvers. They just don't shoot fast enough to keep me safe. Naturally, I did the only thing I could do. Run away to the internet for help. Speedrunning saves the day again because this guy back in 2019 got through this entire hole of a level by rocket jumping up the side of a building and after walking along the roof, fell through a hole to trigger the ending and finish the level. I reloaded a save and tried this tactic myself, which took a few tries due to my low health, but I was able to get on the roof, grab the artifact, and finish the level. I might as well address this while I still have the patience to do so. You may have noticed I haven't made a big stink about the death counter despite the quickly increasing numbers. This is because a good handful of these deaths are self-inflicted. To be perfectly clear, I'm not purposefully dying to boost the count for the sake of comedy. I either died trying to do something, or couldn't be bothered to do the few extra clicks needed to reload my last save. The next level opens up with some of the most banger music I've heard in a while in some wide open desert. Laser boys, Nars, bulls, all before I even step out of the starting area. Most of my time spent here was experimenting with various sections of the map to try and get to the end of the level. I was under the impression I could cheat my way through this level by hopping the fence. All you really need to do is get from here to the other side of that gate and into the buildings inside. Easier said than done. Allow me to explain. I got a relatively safe spot to pick off enemies until I saw some items spawning in the distance. You see, this level actually does require you to do some of it before getting silly and jumping the fence. I didn't know that yet. I tried to go for a run in the desert and started dying from the overwhelming heat. Much like on my last vacation just trying to walk through Miami, don't wait to get water until you find a Publix, bring some with you. Once properly inside where I needed to be, I let the bloodbath begin. Lots of jumping, lots of dying, lots of rockets. Once in an area where I felt like I was safe, I started whittling away at the things around me, right up until I remembered the rocket things exist. It's fun trying to shoot something when you have a literal pinhole to shoot through just to try and get rid of the thing. Peekaboo continued until my stress melted away. The clears came back. I cleared this hellhole and made my way to the Memphis suburbs. The first thing I saw was a guy with a gun. Tennessee is no joke, but I can't stop here. The aliens are about as close to Bass Pro Shops as I am, and I gotta hurry. It will not shock you that the locals were not kind to me, and I figured it would be a good idea to rocket jump to the edge of the map and leave. Like, actually leave. At some point I put my foot down and left the level just to see if I could. I actually got surprisingly far. I don't know why they let you do this, but it's fun, and that's what a game should be, unlike whatever the hell I've been doing up to this point. After reloading a save, I plinked off any enemy I could find, walked into certain death, and had to try to find my way through because I know from walking out into the desert to burn, there was no way in from the outside. I ran around with 1 HP and pretended I was a marsh hopper, and found the secret yodeler. I don't know why this is in the game and it caught me off guard. It's Pizza Tower all over again. What? I need to get into the sewers and find a way to open it. The statues are the key, and trying to press one of the buttons summons enemies because this is Serious Sam HD, the first encounter for Windows PC. After hitting the button and dealing with the Meteor Man, I managed to fall down into the next level, landing inside the ancient Egyptian poop soup before being swiftly chased out of it. If you remember these fish, they were in one of the earlier levels. They're easy to deal with, it's just that they're fast moving and hit really hard. This is the obligatory water level. Lots of swimming and you can stay underwater for a surprisingly long time. Of course, oxygen exists, but that's resolved by spending half a second in fresh air. An arachnid spotted me while I was swimming because video game, but being able to watch a gear drown in a river of shit made up for it. There's frogs. What else would there be? This game doesn't know anything besides clears and marsh hoppers. I had to run into an area with gravity-defying water just to even be able to begin to survive. There was so much trial and error in here that I'm just not even gonna bother covering it. I had to go down another corridor that spawned a buttload of enemies, including one of the meteor guys, and I felt like I couldn't move 5 feet without spawning another enemy. Thankfully, the AI here isn't exactly intelligent, so everyone was getting stuck behind a wall when they shouldn't have. Keep swimming. I have nothing else to add here. Just keep swimming until the level ends, and you'll find the only suspiciously convenient armor that doesn't spawn a frickin' cartoon dust cloud with sounds of fighting coming from it. Welcome to the Memphis metropolis. This level sucks! Out of the gate, you spawn in this. Remember, we're still in Memphis. The simple explanation here, because I can only talk about fighting the same enemies so many times before I become clinically insane, is that I needed to get out of this area and skip most of the level because I was kind of reaching my limit here. The sheer volume of stuff in this little cubicle of an area makes things very frustrating, especially as enemies keep spawning as you kill them like you're fighting some kind of Hydra. The most exciting part of this level up to this point was me blowing myself up in the event I took too much damage like I mentioned way back in the days of yore. There's too many meteor guys throwing crap at me, and once I got them out of the way, I happily skipped through the desert like a kid in a candy store before I made it back to the biggest arena in the area. Do you like explosions? Shirtless men? Screaming? Boy, do I have the level for you. The sheer amount of kamikazes collectively screaming probably did some actual damage to my speaker setup, so thank God I wasn't wearing my good headphones while putting the death counter together for this part. I'm not gonna lie, very little was happening here with me trying to find out how to deal with all these idiots. Speaking of the amount here, I'm not even sure if YouTube is going to be okay with me showing this much gore on screen, so if you suddenly see stock footage of a field of flowers or anything, everything just turns blue, That's why. At some point I got rid of all the screamy, explodey dudes and had to deal with the harpies. Like, a lot of harpies. Like all the f***ing harpies. Why are there so many? Dealing with this crowd of flying demon bird women was making me genuinely question my life choices, not to mention if this run was even possible. Kamikazes are one thing. If you blow up one of them, you can knock out a bunch of them all at once if they're close enough together. I don't have that luxury with flying monster women attacking me with a deadly swarm of projectiles like I'm an extra in Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds. Thankfully, because there's still time left in this video, you know I wasn't here forever. This section took me far longer than I'd like to admit, mostly because I looked at another speedrun to see if it was possible to glitch myself into the exit. I reloaded a save and bounced back into the bomb pit with new strategies. I managed to learn how to ride along the kamikazes like I'm crowd surfing. There's another Pikmin joke somewhere in here, but I'm not going to use finishing Pikmin 2 again last month as an excuse to fill the script with them. I kept killing myself for inexplicable reasons and soon realized that the only way I was proceeding is if I dealt with the harpies. What eventually ended up working was corralling the harpies into this giant cloud of evil and undergoing the tedious task of taking down all of them one by one. Longest 10 minutes of my life. It's not that it was bad, it was just more boring than anything. This game needs to make things interesting by sending in more bulls. Once you start looking at these things for a while, they start looking like rotisserie chickens. I've stopped taking anything seriously by this point, and you can probably tell by my writing style. Dear God, he got rid of the bulls, quick, get old reliable out. Honestly, compared to the amount of harpies from earlier, this just seemed excessive. I don't have anything to say here, just look at all the clears here. Also, a couple rocket dudes spawned and I learned a very hard lesson about paying attention to certain things. The crowd regularly rearranging itself made population control far more difficult than it needed to be. Some idiot left their dreamcatcher in here, and somehow this game keeps getting worse, and the Alley of the Sphinxes is hard proof of that. The best way to deal with this narrow pathway of sin and punishment is simply to walk past the desert parallel to it and ignore every single enemy, except for when I lie and get messed up. They left this cool cannon lying out for free, and the bulls kept getting on my nerves even as I tried using them as platforms to hop the fence. I fell for the classic drop a bunch of enemies at the inconspicuous tree prank again, skipped around like I left the candy store with a giant swirly pop to a nearby wall, and made my way inside. No glitching or skipping here. What you gotta do is drop each of the artifacts you picked up along the way and knock out every last enemy the game throws at you so you go further and further into the rabbit hole of rage. Due to the large, wide open area, the best thing you could do is try to avoid conflict as much as you can by taking the high ground. Numerous attempts eventually left me with a run where simply slapping a mosquito on my arm would cause me to explode in a cloud of gore. I know I'm skipping some of this, but truthfully it's not that important. Strafe jumping in this area is difficult because it's making me do it in the direct paths of enemies, and the last artifact you drop off spawns a metric ton of bulls, giving you a microscopic window to get up to safety. At some point, meteor guys were spawning, making the high ground just as dangerous as the low ground, and I kept looking for new ways to escape all of this. Rewatching this footage during the note-taking made me feel like I was taking crazy pills. I think I got bored of trying and escaped the level again. This time I was able to get to the literal edge of the map, but there was an invisible barrier at the end of it. If the developers didn't want me to jump off the edge of the flat earth to let me end it all, why would they let me go here? 1 out of 10, unplayable, why am I still recording this shit? I eventually knocked out the rest of the enemies before this thing appears and just reminds me that life is short and I can be killed. This would normally be the part where I complain about another boss throwing crap at me if it weren't for the fact that I was able to hide behind a large pillar and spend a hilarious amount of time shooting it. Let's go to the next level. To start off with something funny, you'd think that literally being in the path of a gun would be enough to shoot me, but apparently not. I found some cannonballs in a secret area and got reacquainted with the giant red fool. Your stand of fare of enemies are here, and I can only say the word clear and gnar so many times before I start sounding like I'm trying to make up a language for a fantasy realm. My notes here have one sentence that just says, I hate frogs, so I'm gonna let the footage on screen piece together what I ran into here. I hit the big 4-digit number on the death counter. Who cares? There's this wide open outdoor area, which means I get to enrage the entire tri-state area by existing. There's buttons I gotta push, pushing one button summons nothing but bad vibes and pain, and I can't move 5 feet without something spawning. It's like that cloud of flies that shows up every summer in my area every time I go outside. It's annoying as hell. Oh yeah, this happened too. That number might not seem significant, but just to put that into perspective, that's the number I reached at the end of the Shadow of Chernobyl video. My sanity is held together by dried out rubber bands. After falling for a conveniently placed heart and getting trapped in a death closet, I started to rocket jump out of what turned out to be a one-way window. Exploring the rooftops led me to a final area that I needed to be in. I would like to tell you that this is a game of maintaining the high ground and plinking everything to death, but the game finally grew wise to my tricks and decided to spawn bulls directly on top of my head. The arachnids in the distance were not that much of an issue. That being said, it also felt like the game was actively fighting back against me this time, which was both fun and infuriating. I think the game got upset because it put a rocket dude directly in front of me, and after taking him out, I put the funny statue thing on the pedestal and ran down this big hallway straight into Luxor. I'm not gonna tease anything regarding this level. I'm just gonna tell you what happened as it happened. You put the pieces together as to where I'm going with this. Luxor is a very big level with a lot of stuff going on, some of it reasonable, some of it beyond stupid. I wanted to make something resembling an attempt to beat this level legitimately, and you'll see that throughout. At this point, it was a game of ripping everything apart and moving through the level with baby steps, and going to find 2 more artifacts in 2 adjacent yards, the Feather of Truth and the Golden Heart. But not before I blew up a statue and was punished by Mott for my crimes against the Pharaoh. Getting the feather actually isn't the worst thing in the world if you're a big fan of clears. This area was pretty much a game of some speedrun type platforming in order to go in, get the feather, and then get the hell out, which I was able to do following an incredible amount of attempts. After getting crushed to death when a bull boxed me into a trap and pressing a button to die, I had to perform experiments on platforming due to a lack of health. Rocket jumping would kill me, so this led to my personal invention of cannon jumping. Cannonballs explode if they make contact under certain conditions. One of these conditions is colliding with you regardless of speed. Aim at the floor, jump at the right angle, and I really cannot articulate how much I emphasize the right angle because a few times I missed trying to do it. I eventually formed a plan to swipe the heart and I was able to get it after repeatedly testing my theory and being able to proceed ahead. My next path required me to survive because what else is new by this point in time? I got a free acupuncture service for my contribution to human flight via cannons and entered this room where the ruins got really excited and summoned some aliens that proceeded to go to the wrong part of Africa. Stupid aliens don't even know geography. Later on I found the typical suspiciously placed health and ammo room and my mental downfall began. You're presented with this massive area where you have to open that door straight ahead. To do this, you need to pick up and place 4 separate ankhs scattered around the area in the center of the arena. Naturally, enemy hordes spawn in between pickups and placements. Sounds manageable, right? If you're shooting more than 1800 rounds per month, then yes, it is very much manageable. The first wave of enemies is a bunch of clears and lasers. Rocket jumping makes this trivial to get some high ground and you can deal with the kamikazes and the rocket dudes that come up. I felt pretty confident after nabbing the first ankh, but then number 2 happened. It spawned a bull and a few arachnids and also resulted in me dying to what looked like nothing. After actually grabbing the second one, clears and arachnids. Keep in mind the arachnids will actively move towards you and this is a fairly open area with not that much cover. Even if you're hiding, there's not a lot for the arachnids to get stuck on, but there's also the contents of a KFC dumpster jumping at you, so you're forced to keep moving and exposing yourself. The revolvers simply do not shoot fast enough or hit hard enough for you to survive on them alone. In this position, there was no way I was finishing the level legitimately, despite how far I actually got up to this point. Plan B, time to start cheating. I looked up another speedrun and found what you're looking at right now. Ride a heartbeat to the top of the level and then clip through the roof of the last room. Seems simple enough. Here's the thing, I don't want to do that, so I made the futile effort of rocket and cannon jumping to try and get to the roof however I could. I won't dwell on this very long because it's going to drive both of us insane. Plan C. I reloaded an earlier save and rocket jumped my way to an area where I could walk along the roof of the level. Lowering the heartbeat was easy enough, but actually getting it to cooperate was another story entirely. I think my position was breaking the harpy's programming because it kept trying to come down onto me, but it couldn't actually attack me. This also made jumping on top of it very difficult since it wouldn't work the normal way. There were various attempts with varying levels of success, and at some point I got a good look at the skybox texture. It's a plain stock image complete with a mostly intact watermark. This has no bearing on the run, I just thought it was really funny. After non-stop trial and error, I did finally manage to get 2 harpies to successfully lift me up slowly to the roof of the last room. I was beyond hyped on a level I can't describe and was genuinely excited to be done with this. Only to find out that the roof of this area is completely solid. Fuck. If you're wondering why I watched this clip and thought I would just fall through, knowing that the crouch clip glitch exists, it's because I'm an idiot, and considering this speedrun was uploaded nearly a decade ago according to speedrun.com, I'm not in the mood to waste my time to find out if a glitch from 10 years ago was patched out or not. At this point, I had to give up on the run here due to enemy variety and the speedrun strat likely being fixed due to the gap in time. At 22 hours in, I was done. The official final death count, as far as I am concerned, is 1,188. It is very possible that the glitch is still there, but I do not have the time nor the patience to take the time to figure that out. Someone out there might be able to finish Serious Sam the first encounter with only revolvers. That someone, unfortunately, is not me. I'm gonna be really honest, it's actually kind of refreshing having a run end up like this for a change. My runs have been mostly successful up to this point, with or without cheating, and I haven't had a run end in failure since the time I did a zombies map. To the uninitiated, that was a Season 1 video where I tried to finish a Cold War Zombies map's Easter egg while only allowed to punch things. I'd like to end the video both because I genuinely feel like I can't continue, and I also need to emphasize the 22 hours spent playing this goddamn game up to this point just to lose, but Luxor is very close to the end of the game, like literally the second to last level close. So how about we put a bow on this crime against alien kind and see what would happen if I was able to get to the final level. I pulled out a minigun and let the party begin. It deleted arachnids but didn't take down clears quick enough somehow, so I switched to the cannon since it fared much better at longer ranges. And I took out whatever number 4 brought up. I can't be bothered to go back in the footage to check since I didn't write any actual notes on what happened here and opened the door. And now we are at the footsteps of the Great Pyramids. In an effort to compromise, I did try to use the revolvers as much as humanly possible. Everything in between is not worth battling at all, so it's literally easier to ignore everything and hop the fence. This triggers a cutscene that attracts this giant red fool and the alien mothership thing. At least what I think is the alien mothership thing anyway. Wiping out what is left of the alien army here is the easy part. The hard part is surviving long enough to get to the actual area inside the pyramid. The footage you're watching at this moment is my last recording, and the vast majority of it is me screwing around. At some point I tried to go through the arenas and wasted even more time somehow. I wasted an ungodly amount of time firing bullet after bullet into the sky just to see if it was possible to kill him without entering the pyramid. The answer is no. At some point his health stops going down and I failed to notice that for a while. To be truthful, the cutscene that plays here is actually pretty cool, all things considered. I won't spend too much time lamenting on what I could have done here, as the problem with the revolvers really became obvious. The boss requires you to do a few things, primarily jumping through these hoops with these launch pads to activate a powerful laser to erase a good chunk of its HP. The main problem comes when you do it pretty much once after spending a good portion of your life trying to throw enough magnum rounds to make the entire American South shed a tear, because the big red dummy out here likes to heal. You genuinely cannot move or shoot fast enough to lower its health fast enough to counteract this. You essentially end up in this loop that has no means of letting you exit. At this point, I think it's safe to say that even if I did somehow manage to successfully make my way to the end with a glitch, I simply don't move fast enough to reasonably be able to whittle this thing's health down enough to actually kill it. Though I wasn't happy about having to do it for once, I pulled out the other weapons and started doing something resembling actual damage. I knocked it dead, I got abducted, I made a phone call from the alien ship, like literally made a phone call. Here's the cutscene audio.
We're sorry. It is not necessary to dial a 1 when calling this number.
What the?
Will you please hang up and try your call again?
Not again.
You get the point. I couldn't beat this game with revolvers even if I wanted to. Thank you for watching. Leave a like and tell me your thoughts down in the comments below. If you'd like to keep up with things I do beyond this channel, you can follow me on Instagram and Blue Sky, the links to which are found in the description. Check out my playlists on the Season 2 comp screen here, and subscribe for more videos just like this one. can you help me? Seriously, a friend of mine sent me some scam email. I clicked it like a moron. Some dudes dragged me out of my house from here. I've been here for 3 months. Help me.